Okay, hello everyone. So let's start on time, and then if people like join later, they join as they come in. So welcome to the new session of AI for Good in New York. So we had a long summer break, and so now we are back to talk about AI and the application of AI for Good. So today I have the pleasure to have Professor Nikhil Agarwal, who is a distinguished economist and academic, currently serving as a professor in the economics department at MIT. MIT is probably the number one or number two economics department in the country, or maybe even in the world. He's a prominent figure in the field of economics and also in his area like market design. He has a PhD in economics from Harvard that he received in 2013. He received his bachelor's degree in economics and mathematics from Brandeis in 2008. So he's an expert in many subfields of economics, like market design, matching markets, IO, industrial organization, and public policy, and he has published many papers in prestigious academic journals. He's also affiliated with the NBER, the National Bureau of Economic Research. In fact, it's where I learned about his research that he's going to present today. So the title of his talk today is Combining Human Expertise with AI, Experimental Evidence from Radiology. So this is, of course, a fascinating topic beyond the radiology and medical science, that as AI is progressing and we are going to see more and more AI tools in the workplace and in academia and so on. How do we combine our own expertise, our human expertise, the expertise brought by AI? And Professor Agarwal shows that it's not that straightforward. Okay, so I'll give you the floor. Thank you for the meet.
Thank you so much, Min, for that very generous introduction. So, as you mentioned, this work is at the interface of economics and artificial intelligence. We're thinking about how human expertise can be combined with AI. And we're going to think about this in the particular context of radiology. And this work is joint work with Tobias, Salz, my colleague, grad student Alex Moehring, and our collaborator, Pranav Rajpurkar, who's at Harvard Medical School and has contributed a lot to developing AI tools for radiology. So as motivation of this talk, as you know, in this particular forum, that AI is a transformative technology. And one of the things that's different about AI as opposed to past technologies, that it is both general purpose technology, so it can be used in a wide range of areas, and it is also targeted at high skill tasks relative to previous technologies, say from the Industrial Revolution. And so there's some concern, there's a great concern that AI is going to displace work, even work that requires complex reasoning. Within the class of predictive domains, AI tools based on machine learning in particular, the ones that we're going to kind of think about, and I'm going to use the two somewhat interchangeably, which is machine learning and AI. We've seen that some of these tools have outperformed humans in a number of predictive domains. So leading examples include credit scoring. You might think about bail judgments, where machine learning tools are being used to make risk assessments, like the Compass tool. And in medical diagnostics. In fact, radiology happens to be an iconic example in this sphere. This claim is best supported by this very famous quote by Geoffrey Hinton, who is one of the founding figures in modern AI technology. In 2016, Geoffrey Hinton said, "We should stop training radiologists now. It's completely obvious that within 5 years, deep learning is going to do better than radiologists." Okay, so that prediction hasn't come to pass, but the spirit of the prediction is still alive, that at some point radiologists might be outperformed by AI, and then maybe their skill is not necessary. Now, some others don't think that is going to come to pass. And so if you ask the question of whether radiologists will be replaced by AI, many luminaries like Curtis Langlotz at Stanford, who leads the medical AI group there, So the right answer is that radiologists who use AI as an assistance tool will replace radiologists who do not. Why does Langlot say this? So there are a couple of reasons. One of them is the regulatory and legal framework, and you can think about that in a number of contexts. For example, if you think about self-driving cars, it's very difficult to set up the legal and regulatory framework. Who has the liability if the self-driving car causes an accident? Similarly, in the case of medical diagnostics, there are some issues like that. Who is liable if a disease is missed or there's negligence on a particularly automated diagnostic tool? Then there's partial task automation. So these radiologists do a number of things that is not just look at images. They have other tasks that are involved. They interface with the medical system in particular ways. And so there's going to be some partial task automation. For example, it's possible that from a chest X-ray, the most common diseases are going to be well diagnosed by machine learning tools, but perhaps there's going to be some rarer diseases that humans have learned how to, in various ways, learned how to diagnose, but machines are not able to because there isn't enough data, perhaps. And then third, there's going to be a creation of new tasks. So somebody will be tasked with taking the AI output, which might be difficult to use by a non-expert, and then interpreting and using it. So maybe the treating physician will have to do that. And when the treating physician does that, having some ability to figure out if a machine has made a mistake might be helpful. For the purpose of this talk, we are going to set a number of these issues aside, and we're going to think primarily about performance, and we will think about how and why we should combine AI tools with human input in this context, setting aside some of these legal and regulatory barriers. Okay, just from a performance context, because those barriers are important, and that's a separate type of question that one should try to also address when you think about the deployment. Okay. And so when you think about this as an economist is going to start thinking about what are the strengths and weaknesses of humans relative to AI tools. So one of the things that comes up in a number of medical contexts is that human doctors might have access to information that AI tools, at least as of now, do not have access to. So this is easily seen when a patient and a doctor is interacting, right? Where the doctor can see what the patient's disposition is, how they walk, how they look, how they're interacting. And there's a lot of data and information that's being communicated in that's difficult to even fully write down in medical notes or costly to write down in medical notes. But AI tools today may not be able to capture all of that information. In the context of radiology, the system is a little bit more closed. And so, you have the image, you might have medical history. And the machine learning tools that I'm aware of today for radiology, at least for chest X-ray, do not combine, for the most part, the medical history and labs and other things with the image in producing a prediction. So we're going to take an AI tool off the shelf that uses just the image. So that's going to be useful from a research perspective, because we'll be able to understand what other sources of information that's available to the doctor, the medical history, and not available to the AI tool is useful. So humans in general might have access to some data, some information that the AI doesn't, for various reasons. But if you give the human the AI tool's prediction and ask the human to say, let's combine these other sources of information with the AI's prediction, then they may not combine these sources of information effectively. So humans may not be good Bayesians, and so they might not optimally combine the two sources of information and come up with the best decision. Okay. And so there's a question about whether you want to use this additional information that the human has, because it may not be correctly used. Third, as an economist, one has to think about, when you think about the deployment of AI versus humans, training an AI tool takes a long time. It's very costly. Training a doctor also is costly. But when you think about training a doctor and having a doctor read these images, then for every case that is being diagnosed by a doctor, there's some effort being exerted. Whereas once the AI tool has been developed, it's almost costless to have the AI tool read the image because it's zero cost, marginal cost of time. And so that creates a slight disadvantage if the number of cases that are being read is very large, and you can recoup the fixed cost of developing the AI tool. So in this paper, we asked 3 types of questions. The first type of question is whether the contextual information, this is information that's available to the doctor, but not to the AI tool, is this information valuable? And we'll see how much predictive accuracy is affected if this information is and is not available. The second type of question that we're going to ask is whether humans combine AI predictions with their own information correctly. And if they don't do so correctly, what types of biases do humans exhibit in making these predictions? So there's lots of evidence that humans make mistakes when combining signals, and so we'll try to understand what types of biases are important here. And then finally, given the types of biases that we will uncover, what we're going to next do is we're going to think about how to design human AI collaboration to maximize the total benefits to society. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to conduct an information experiment with radiologists. So they're going to be retrospective cases of potential thoracic pathologies that are going to be diagnosed using an X-ray and medical history. And in the experiment, we're going to vary the availability of AI assistance and contextual information. This is going to be a state-of-the-art AI tool that I'll tell you more about. And the contextual information is going to be this clinical history that's available in the past. And then in the experiment, we're going to measure the effects of these interventions on the diagnostic assessments and the quality of the treatment follow-up recommendations. With this data that we will gather, we will also define and measure 3 types of biases. The first type of bias is going to be what's called automation bias or neglect, which is that humans may either over-rely or underutilize the AI predictions. So it could be that when they come up with their posterior belief, given what the AI has said and what information they have, they overweight the AI or underweight it. Similarly, they might also exhibit own information bias or neglect, in which they either over-rely or under-rely on their own information. And then finally, a third type of bias that's going to be important is signal dependence neglect. So basically, if you think about what the human sees and what the AI sees, both of them see the image. The doctors know that the AI uses only the image, but it's possible that they may not realize that how correlated the AI assessment is with their own. And because it's potentially strongly correlated, they might, and they don't completely realize it, they might overweight the certain parts of the AI signals. They might overcount it or double count it. Okay, and so we'll try to define and measure these types of biases. And then we'll find some of these biases are important while others are not. And then finally, we're going to solve an optimal delegation policy in which the AI prediction that is given for a particular case is going to be the piece of information that we're going to use to try and determine whether a case should be read by the human, delegated to the AI, or given to the human with AI assistance. Okay. And so we're going to contribute to a large number of literatures. There's a long tradition in economics of thinking about how experts make decisions. Most of these papers are not in the context of AI. There's also a long tradition in economics of thinking about how biased belief updating works in humans, dating back to the famous work of Kahneman and Tversky. And so we're going to use a model and an approach built by Grether in 1980 to try and define and estimate these biases. Those of you who are computer scientists in this audience will be well aware of a lot of work in computer science, or also in medicine, in fact, that compares human and AI performance in the context of radiology and other contexts. So those studies primarily think about whether the human is better, the AI is better. They also think about learning to delegate. But what's different about our study relative to these other studies is that we're going to try to unpack the types of behavioral biases that are present in humans and think about how those behavioral biases influence the type of delegation solution that is best. Okay. There's also a literature in the human-machine collaboration domain that thinks about whether humans use the AI tool or not. Algorithm aversion is one example of it. Deepwashed has done a lot of work there. And then finally, there are lots of work on the economic implications of AI and jobs, etc. Okay, this is a good time to pause in case there are questions. I'm happy to take questions along the way if anybody has any, but I'm happy to pause here before I go through the rest of the talk, which is going to start with describing the decision-making problem and the experimental design before describing the treatment effects and the biases in belief updating, and then finally turning to the optimal delegation problem.
I have one question. What you are doing, you could do it with so here you do it with an AI, but it could be a doctor trying to combine his diagnostic with another doctor, right?
Yeah.
So is there any like research that has been done before on this?
No, I think that this idea about second opinions or collaborative decision making amongst doctors is a good direction to think about as well. I think that we are particularly motivated by the specific issues that come up with AI. So the optimal delegation problem in particular is not as natural in the case where there are multiple experts who are trying to aggregate their opinions, or there's a second opinion that is being done. So that's where we are ultimately headed, and that is why we didn't consider an experiment of the form that you're describing. But some of the biases in belief updating that we will uncover might be at play when different doctors are also discussing with each other. For example, I might underweight or not realize that another doctor's assessment score related with mine.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, for instance, when you referee for papers, you accept or reject the paper, or you can ask the opinion of the editor, or this kind of things. Actually, it could be interesting as well. We have research.
Totally.
Prafula, you have a question?
Yeah. I had it is a very simple and short question. When you say that it is the human AI interface and how what kind of biases show up among humans who are using AI, etc., etc. Would this type of analysis work for even non-AI help that can be given to a human? Or related question from my side is that in the rest of your presentation, would you be talking about any differences between how humans will interact with AI versus how humans will interact with non-AI algorithms?
Totally. Yeah, I think the answer to that question is also related to what I told Min. So I think that there's absolutely a question that some of the biases that are going to be present could be present, and there's been other studies that have shown similar biases when humans get signals from other humans. So maybe you do not, correctly account for your colleague's opinion in your decision making. That's totally possible and totally something that can happen. And as I mentioned, this optimal delegation problem specifically is unique to AI. So the existence of the biases might be more prevalent, but it's not as natural to think about the delegation question in the context of human-human interaction or other types of interactions as compared to AI interactions, because in the optimal delegation problem, some of the cases are going to be automated and the humans will never look at it. So the AI will make a decision for some cases and the human will never be in the loop. Does that make sense?
Yes. That's a good answer, actually. I think I like the answer. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks for the question. I'm happy to take more, because it's better to take questions and interact than to speak nonstop for 45 minutes. Okay, good. So or if it cuts into question and answers and your questions have been answered in the meantime, that's fine too, from my perspective at least. Okay, so let's put some math around this to try and be more specific about the types of problems that we're thinking about. So this is a little bit mathematical, but it's useful to look at it just to sort of fix ideas a bit, and hopefully it's not too heavy. So imagine that there's a state of the world, omega, which is, whether a particular case should be diagnosed as positive or negative, 0 or 1. And there's some probability that a randomly given case is positive, and let's say pi of 1, okay? Now, the expert decision maker takes a binary action or recommendation, which is 0 or 1, which is to say, should the case be followed up on or not, okay? And the goal is to match the decision to the state of the world. So, for example, if you recommend that a case is positive and should be followed up on when the case is negative, then you've incurred a false positive. So you've classified a case as positive, whereas it's negative, so there's a cost. It shows up with a negative sign. Similarly, if a case is given as negative when the case is positive, then you have a false negative. Okay, so you missed a case. And so what happens is that one way to think about this is that the expert has some signal, SE, and the AI has some signal, SA, and these signals have some joint distribution that depend on the state of the world, and that's the signal. Praful, I see your hand. Just give me 1 minute.
Another very quick question. When you're talking about action, state, payoffs, etc., is there a chronology to this in the sense that does the expert decision maker decide on A before seeing the AI signal or after seeing the AI signal?
Yeah, so give me a minute and it'll become a little bit clearer.
Okay, so great, thank you.
The expert has a signal SE, that's their own signal that is different from the AI signal, and there's an SA signal, the AI signal, which may or may not be available. Okay, and so what we're going to say is that the expert is going to take some action given a subset of signals S that the expert observes. We're going to collapse time, and so it doesn't matter whether you see one signal before or after. You're going to update in this. You're just going to think about your beliefs after you've seen a set of signals. Okay, so that's the answer to Prafula's question. And so we're going to say that the expert takes an action given the signal that are observed. If the expert believes that the state of the world 1 is much more likely than the state of the world 0, given the signals that they see, then the expert is going to tend towards taking the action 1. Otherwise, they're going to tend towards taking the action 0. But the cost of false positives and false negatives also matter. And the reason why they matter is that suppose a missed case of pneumonia is much worse for the patient than giving them antibiotics and sending them home, then you might want to follow up on the case and treat the patient, even if the probability that the case is positive is 35%. So 50% may not be the optimal cutoff to decide which is right. Now, the expert's beliefs are given by P, which are different from pi. Pi denotes the true law, and P denotes the belief that the expert has. Okay, so that's what's going to happen, and the key thing is to think about these probabilities and these cutoffs. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and try to show you the experimental design to try and give you a sense of how exactly the experiment works and so that you can understand the treatment effects and how the design works. But the key thing to keep in mind here is that in order to understand how these experts' beliefs work and compare it with pi, we want to know the expert's opinion both with AI and without AI. Okay, so we want to be able to do that. So let's go into the experimental design to see what happens when the experts are given the AI assistance and when they're not given the AI assistance. So it's a fairly simple design in principle, but it has some subtleties. So it's a 2x2 design at a high level, where the first 2 dimensions of treatment are access to AI predictions, and the second dimension is the access to clinical history. Okay, so clinical history here is going to be labs and other things. I'll show you exactly in a screenshot what that looks like. In the third treatment dimension, we provided the radiologists that we hired. So these are radiologists that were hired, teleradiologists who were hired by us, and we paid the company that hired them on our behalf $10 a case. Okay, and so the radiologists receive some, half the radiologists receive some incentives for accuracy. They could earn up to 20% of about on average $2 a case for getting it right. Okay. The incentives for accuracy did not matter, and so I'm not going to really talk about it. Okay, and these radiologists who were hired, they were looking at retrospective cases. So what we had was radiologists that who participated remotely through an interface that we tailor-made that is trying to mimic clinical practice in reality as closely as possible. Okay, and this interface was developed in collaboration with radiologists at Mount Sinai Hospital and Stanford Hospital. Okay, so there are going to be 324 cases that we recovered, that we drew from the Stanford healthcare system for the study. These were first X-rays, so first encounters with no prior comparison. It's a chest X-ray, and there was clinical history that we manually reviewed. So that all data sets could be publicly released. So we hope to do that in a short amount of time. The main difference that we have relative to standard clinical practice is going to be, instead of getting a free text report from radiologists, which is the standard practice, we're going to get a structured data entry which is going to be clear in a minute what that looks like. So when the radiologists encounter an X-ray, this is what they see. So they see an image. There's an X-ray, and we give them the tools to zoom in and out, adjust the brightness, contrast, etc., as they would in their normal course of practice. Okay. Along with the X-ray, there were two types of information: the AI information and the clinical history. So let's think about the AI information that was provided. So we took the Checkspert model that was developed at Stanford, based on over 200,000 chest X-rays. This model takes as input the images from a bunch of X-rays at Stanford Hospital and extracted labels from the free text report that radiologists put down. So these X-rays were originally read by some radiologists. Maybe they noted various diseases, and so that label is extracted from the report. And what the model tries to do is to try and predict that label. So positive for pneumonia or airspace opacity, or not, for example. And it provides probabilities of the case being positive for 14 different pathologies. In prior work by my collaborator and others, they've shown that the performance of this algorithm is similar to the board-certified radiologists who practice at Stanford Hospital. So this graph here on the right shows you the trade-off between the false positive rate and the true positive rate, or the ROC curve of the algorithm, and compares it with 3 particular RADs, and you can see that the RADs are not doing better than the algorithm. So the algorithm can do pretty well. And so the idea of the algorithm is to try to predict these labeled reports, and this is what the subjects in our experiment are going to see. The second treatment dimension is going to be the availability of clinical history. And so here's an example of it. It includes a doctor's note. So it's all the information that's available typically to a radiologist when they read the report, when they are asked to diagnose a X-ray. So here's a case for a 30-year-old female with a history of hypertension with a abnormal EKG, and they're being asked to evaluate for cardiomegaly or mediastinal widening. So cardiomegaly means enlarged heart. And so there's an imaging technique to try and figure out whether the case should be classified for enlarged heart or mediastinal widening. Okay. In addition, we provided the vitals that were available at the last visit, and all the labs are available, but the abnormal labs are shown by default. Okay. And so, as I said, a difference in our approach is going to be that instead of getting a free text report, we're going to get some structured data entry from our participants. So here's the form in which we get this structured data entry. There's a slider, as you can see, that goes from highly unlikely to highly likely. And the radiologist can toggle this slider to say for airspace opacity, pick here 43%. The AI prediction here for this particular case was 12%, very unlikely. Okay, so this scale was based on analyzing radiologists' typical annotations, but we also asked for this probability on the scale, and we also asked for this whether or not they would recommend follow. We've analyzed the exact probabilities. We've analyzed, in an ordinal way where larger numbers means more likely than smaller numbers, and the answers are kind of similar. Okay, and so we're going to think about aggregate categories like airspace opacity in our study for the main part. The results have been disaggregated to lower level pathologies and are available in our very long appendix if you're interested.
Nikhil, can I ask you so the radiologists, they get paid like $10 a case. Do they earn more money? They get it right or no? Or you didn't try that?
Sorry?
Did you give them reward for accuracy?
Yeah, this was the third treatment dimension, which is incentives for accuracy. But they could get $2 on average a case if they got things right, and the incentives didn't matter.
Maybe the size is a bit small, no? $2 is
it's 20% of their wage. It's a 20% per case.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because like if they're getting $10 a case, and it's 20, and they could get. By the way, the $10 is what we paid the teleradiology companies.
Yes.
And so they're probably taking a cut. I'm guessing. Maybe the radiologists are getting $6 or $7 a case, and then we directly pay the radiologists an additional $2 if they get it right in a treatment arm. So that's a substantial portion of the wage. The average radiologist takes.
Many of these doctors are not based in the US too, right? So at least
That's true, but many are. So I don't remember the exact proportions, but about a little under half are US based, I think. But keep in mind, a case takes 2.5 minutes on average for a radiologist to read.
Okay.
So $2 bonus for something that takes you 2 or 3 minutes is not negligible. Like 3, maybe 4 minutes. If you spend like a minute extra, you could win $2. I think it's not a small incentive. Okay, so there's a question about how to compare these radiologist assessments to some kind of ground truth. Okay, so what we're going to do is this is difficult. Okay, so why is this difficult? One way to do this would have been to get a definitive diagnostic test for every case. But that's difficult. So if you think about cardiomediastinal widening or cardiomegaly, you could maybe do CAT scans or something else. But it is, it's not going to be administered on every patient. It's going to be administered on patients that are more likely to have some problem, right? And so that results in a selective labels problem where only some of the cases will be labeled with a higher resolution scan. And so in a diagnostic setting, it's almost impossible to have both unselective labels and a more definitive test. So what we're going to do is we're going to establish a diagnostic standard by aggregating the assessments of board certified radiologists that we reached out to. So we collaborated with 5 board certified chest radiologists from Mount Sinai Healthcare System, and we aggregated the decisions, their assessments, into constructing a ground truth, whether the case should be diagnostically classified as positive or classified as negative. So what is the diagnostic standard for this case? Okay. So with that diagnostic standard, we're going to compare the radiologists to how well they do. So these radiologists are going to be good experimental subjects because, so they don't interact with patients. And so we can actually turn on and off the clinical history, which is the contextual information. And so we hired a bunch of teleradiologists. We're going to have about more than 200 participants. We have about 180 completed now. The subjects were trained with a demonstration of a video, an explanation of the AI tool, several examples with AI predictions, and burn-in practice cases. Okay. So one of the issues that we want to, one of the issues that you have when running a study of this magnitude, is that it's an expensive subject pool, right? So it's like $10 a case to do. So one thing that you might have thought about doing is to show some radiologists the AI tool and do not show the AI tool to some other radiologists, okay? If you did that, you would need many radiologists and a lot of cases being read, okay? And the reason is that radiologists are all different from each other. And so heterogeneity across subjects will become a problem. So what you would like to do is to show the same subject, some cases with AI and some cases without AI, because then the subject's overall skill is held constant. And so that's a within design. So that's a slightly different experimental design, and one of which we're gonna use. An even better thing to do would be to have the same subject read the same case twice, once with AI, but once without the AI. But if you do that, you'd worry a little bit about anchoring effect, that they'd remember what case it was and what they saw, what they said before, and they may not want to change their opinion, or they might, behave in ways that are not according to the stylized model where they're just a signal and so on, and what does the accuracy look like? So let me show you the type of experimental design that we use, because it's useful to think about that. Because it's useful to think about that in the context of running experiments of this form. So here we had subjects that were randomized into various tracks, and each track had a sequence of information environments. Here's XO, which says X-ray only, CH, which says clinical history, AI, it's AI only, and AI plus CH, which is both. And so the subject here read this different set of cases under the different information treatments, 15 cases in each treatment, okay? And now what we've got is different tracks have different sequences, and what we can get out of that is a situation where the first initial randomization gives you a pure cross-subject design, but the within randomization allows you to control very specifically for the subject's skill. Okay. One drawback of the design is that we don't know how well they're doing relative to the Bayesian benchmark. And so we had a second design in which each radiologist first participated in a session that looks exactly like design one. So XO, AI, AI plus CH, CH, etc. And then after a 2-week washout period, went into session 2, where we switched the order of, we switched which case goes into which information environment. So here you've got some cases being read under X-ray only, and those cases are then later being read under AI. And so the idea is that if they forget what, if the radiologists forget, the information that was previously provided to them, then we can get their assessment for the same case both with and without AI. Okay, so that's the idea behind that, and we can compare how biased they are. So first, let's take a look at how well our subjects do relative to the AI. So here on the right-hand side, I've got a histogram of AUROC where each data point is a radiologist, and the histogram and higher numbers of AUROC are better performance. And so you can see that the AI is at the 64th percentile of performance. So the AI is doing better than about 2/3 of the radiologists in our experiment. Okay, so you can think of it as getting an opinion from better than randomly chosen radiologists. RMSE is a measure that is that smaller numbers are better, and here again the AI is doing better than 2/3 of the radiologists. Okay. So with that, let's go ahead and estimate some treatment effects to try and understand what was the effect of providing AI and clinical history to the performance of radiologists. So here's a graph that shows you on the vertical axis the average treatment effect of the deviation from the ground truth. So a negative number means that the deviation of the radiologist from the ground truth is lower, which is better. Okay. So in the first dot with the bar chart with that's labeled AI says that if I provide the subject with just the AI, then the treatment effect of the deviation from the ground truth is essentially 0. Okay, it's no different from 0, and 0 cannot be ruled out. So that means that the humans are not getting any better if if they're provided with the AI. If instead we look at the effect of providing clinical history, then what you see is that providing clinical history reduces the deviation of the ground truth, so that humans doing better with when clinical history is provided as opposed to when clinical history is not provided. Okay. If clinical history is already provided, then the marginal effect of AI is 0. So clinical history is valuable, but it doesn't look like, on average, AI assistance is making a difference. So you might say, does this mean that the humans are not paying attention to AI? So one way in which you can get a zero treatment effect is that the radiologists completely ignore the AI, then they won't get any improvement from the AI. Notice that if humans just purely follow the AI, the deviation will be better because the radiologists are doing better than 2/3 of the radiologists. The AI is better than 2/3 of the radiologists. Sorry. So now, what about the deviation from the AI? So is the case that the human prediction is closer to the AI prediction when AI is provided? And the answer is yes. So the treatment effect of when AI is provided, the average assessment that the human provides is 4% closer to the AI as compared to without the AI. So the humans are using the AI, but they're not doing better on average. So what's going on? Let's go back to the average treatment effect of the deviation from the ground truth. But now let's split it up based on the prediction bins of the AI. So 0 to 20% means that the AI is quite confident that the case is negative. And then you have 0 to 80%, 0.2 to 80% where the AI is not as confident, and then 0.8 to 1% where the 100%, which is that the AI is confident the case is positive. Most of the cases are about here, okay? And so what you see is that when the AI is confident that the case is negative, providing AI assistance reduces the deviation from the ground truth. So the subject's doing better if the AI is confident the case is negative. If the AI provides a middling signal between 0.2 to 0.6, then the humans are doing somewhat worse. The treatment effect is negative, is worse. So like this is positive, which means it's worse. Now, it's important to note that if the humans were Bayesian and doing this correctly, this wouldn't happen. So this rules out a model in which the humans are Bayesians with correct beliefs about the AI's assessment and their own information. So this means that middling signals are worse than providing no signals. Okay. Finally, you can say, okay, that's on the probabilities. Well and good. What about treatment decisions? Well, the treatment decisions show a similar pattern. The probability of an incorrect decision increases when the AI provides a middling signal, as opposed to when it doesn't. All right. And finally, you can think about the treatment effect on time taken, and the humans take longer when provided with the AI as opposed to not. So the AI seems to not be helping humans on average, in this case, makes them take a little bit longer. And so it might be, if there was a all AI or no AI scenario, all AI assistance or no AI assistance scenario, in our study, there isn't a strong case for using AI assistance. Okay, because it costs more and it does not improve decisions on average.
It would be interesting to put a time limit, right? Because sometimes you have all this research that shows that experts, they have this system 1, system 2, so maybe they're like immediate, decision might be different from if you give them like you give them 10 seconds to decide or 2 or 5 minutes to decide, they might change their opinions. And then so if they see if there's any pattern in that.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I mean, the effect is about 8 seconds on average, so it's not like that's a huge thing. I think that it would not be very politically feasible or regulatorily feasible to put a time limit on how long a radiologist can take to diagnose a patient case. I think that would be a difficult thing to push, and so we kept an eye on practical implementability and thinking about what types of experiments to do. That was our rationale behind that. Yeah, Prafula.
In the previous slides that you had the dot and the error bar, right?
Which one are you
What
talking
is
about?
that error? Yeah, this one, for example, what are those error bars coming there?
So every estimate, because it's a sample and experiment, every estimate has some sampling noise in it, right? Because we have lots of cases that are being, we have about 180 radiologists reading 60 to 100 cases each. However, as in any experiment, there's going to be some uncertainty, statistical uncertainty, and so that's what we are showing there.
I see. So this is not coming from the fact that you are saying that you have some whatever hundreds of radiologists, and you say, okay, are my results sample specific? So therefore, I take those 200 radiologists, and they say that okay, I take out like 10% of the sample, and do my analysis on 180 of them, and then randomly take out another 10%, and so on and so forth. And so you just basically eliminate the possibility that it is the specific sample that is causing this issue. That is not this error bar, right?
That's roughly what this is. So it's supposed to, what you're describing is kind of a bootstrap type measure.
Yes, correct, exactly.
Of how to estimate these error bars, and a bootstrap technique would give you the similar error bars.
Okay.
It's computed in a different way, but a bootstrap would give you a similar error bar.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm a little short on time, so I'm going to zoom ahead a little bit. But I'll give you a little bit of overview of what we're doing here. What we want to understand is whether humans use their own information or not. Okay, and when they do so, do they do so optimally, and how far they are from the Bayesian benchmark? And so, what we identify is two types of biases. One is that they don't appropriately weight the AI information, so they tend to underweight the AI assistance. That's one. Second, they tend to assume that the AI assistance is independent. AI information is independent of their own, even though it's not. The AI is looking at the image. They are looking at the image, and so because these images that information is correlated, you should not necessarily utilize it as if it's independent information, but they do. And so because they do that, they end up making some mistakes. So what we can show you now is what is the average treatment effect of the deviation of the ground truth under various scenarios. Like if the model was Bayesian, if the humans were Bayesian or not Bayesian, or they made different types of mistakes. And so given that, we can think about the optimal delegation problem. So let me tell you a little bit about this, and I'm going to end at that point. Okay, so what we're going to try to do is we're going to say, okay, we're going to find a function tau that takes as input the AI signal, the prediction that the AI has about this case. Okay, and given this prediction, there's going to be different modes of delegation. So you could give the case to the human, and they could use the clinical history and the image to make a diagnosis. You could give the human the AI, and if you give them the AI, they can use both the AI and the clinical history to make a diagnosis. Or you can have full automation. So the human is never in the loop, and the AI makes an autonomous decision. Under each of these cases, there's a diagnostic quality or loss called V, okay, which is the average value of diagnostic quality that is achieved under V, under this scenario. Let M be a factor that converts it into social value in dollars, okay? We don't know what M is, and we'll calculate a frontier given various values of M. This diagnostic quality is going to be measured in terms of false negatives, so missed cases, for example. Then there's a cost, which is how much human effort is being utilized in that mode. So if the case is given to the AI, the human effort is 0 and the cost is 0. If the case is given to the human, then it's 2.5 minutes multiplied by the wage rate, which is $4 a minute for the radiologists, which is what we pay. If the case is given to the human with AI assistance, it costs a little bit more. And so what we want to do is maximize this quantity by finding a delegation solution. And so what we identify here is a delegation solution in which, for example, the cases that have very low probability that it's positive, or very high probability that the AI thinks it's positive, are going to be given to the AI-assisted human. If the AI is extremely confident that the case is positive, then it's going to be given straight to the AI. Okay, but for different values of M, there are going to be different delegation solutions. Okay, and so what you can do is you can measure the trade-off between the decision loss for 100 cases in terms of cost of false negatives versus time spent on each case. What you can see is if all the cases are given to the AI, there are about 10 decision losses per 100 cases, 10 units of decision loss per 100 cases. If all the cases are given to the expert only, then there are about 8 decision losses per case. Okay, and then by changing the delegation solution, you can get, depending on how much time you want the humans to spend, you can get to below what the humans get. If you had a human that was perfectly trained to use the AI, you'd be at the Bayesian decision maker solution, and the decision losses will be even lower. And so let's take a look at what the delegation solution looks like. On the left-hand side, I've got a Bayesian human with and without AI. If the cost of a false negative, so the cost of a missed case of pneumonia is, say, $100 per case, okay, of case of missed pneumonia, then about what we find is about half of the cases would be given to the AI only in the white region, and half of the cases would be given to a well-trained human, Bayesian human, who understands exactly how the AI works. A very small number of cases are given to the human without the AI signal. On the right-hand side, I've got the graph that accounts for the mistakes that humans make. Okay, so if I give you a social loss of $100 a case, then almost all of the cases are going to be given to the AI. For higher costs of false negatives, a fraction of cases are given to the human only, without AI assistance. These are cases that the AI is uncertain on, and most of the cases are given to the AI. Okay, but there are very few cases that are collaborative, right? Even at very high values of decision losses, because of the biases that humans are making, it's almost never the case that a AI-assisted human is given the case. And if you think about that, in light of our results that I showed you a long time ago, it makes sense. If the AI is unsure about whether the case is positive or negative, then providing the AI signal makes the human worse off. Okay, so if the human is quite sure that the case is positive or negative, we should just delegate it to the AI. We shouldn't do this thing where some of the cases are given to the human, some of the cases are given to the AI. Okay, but if the human is somewhat sure, so if the AI is somewhat sure, not quite sure, then the human should get the case without any AI intervention whatsoever, without any AI assistance whatsoever. Okay, and so the biases that humans makes a big impact in the biases that humans have, makes a big impact on the type of delegation solution that we get. So I'm going to conclude now. We'll have about 5 more minutes left for questions. So the goal of the study was to think about how human AI interaction works in radiology. And we found some forms of biases. So there was automation neglect. So this does not end up lowering diagnostic accuracy, but there is correlation neglect that does result in some problems. AI increases the time spent, and it turns out that human-assisted AI is rarely optimal. So I think that this is an interesting area for economics to contribute, because economics is a science that starts thinking about how human decision-making works, and the biases that we uncover are useful in thinking about how human AI collaboration should work. But looking beyond, also organizational incentives can be important. If AI becomes, for example, a diagnostic benchmark or a standard, then humans that deviate from the AI recommendation might be penalized in the workforce, and they might be unwilling to use their own judgment. And so there's some interesting questions there as well. All right, that was it for me. Happy to take some questions. Thank you so much for the questions on the fly, and appreciate the opportunity to speak here.
Okay, thank you very much. So in the audience, if you want to ask questions to Nikhil, please raise your hand. We'll give you the floor. While you are thinking, so maybe I have one question. So if humans are not that great at doing applying Bayesian law, so why don't you do it yourself as the modeler? You could just take the human input, the AI input, and have the decision, right?
Yeah. So that's one way to think about this result, which is like, let's say that you could use use Bayes rule ex post. What would happen? And even then, about half of the cases are being given to the AI. And so basically what ends up happening in our results is that humans are more likely to work alongside AI than with AI if we're not providing the Bayesian law, or if they have these biases, or if you're going to combine human signal ex post, then humans are providing the signal without seeing the AI, and the AI is using it afterwards, right? So even in that case, there's this sort of sequentiality to it. And about half of the cases are being used. One thing that I would be concerned about if you had that system is that humans who know that their assessments are going to be modified by an AI tool later on might behave differently and might change what they provide, they might exaggerate, for example. And so our experiment does not speak to that, and so that's why we didn't talk about it.
Also clinically, I guess the hospital, you still want to have a doctor at the end who is responsible for the output, right? So
that's right.
There's an issue. You can say, well, the AI, disagree with the doctor, and we decided not to do it.
Yeah, no, totally. But in that case where you do the sequential thing where the human looks at it first and then the AI use the Bayesian rule, if they exaggerate, that could mislead the treating physician, right?
Prafula?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for a very good presentation. I learned from it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I think I hope it will encourage other researchers to investigate this topic, besides medical science and so on, because it's going to be a big issue for everyone, very, very soon. Okay, I don't see any no more questions coming in. So thank you very much. I encourage everyone to. So I put the link to Nikhil's webpage. You can read his papers online. It's a thick paper, but very, 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 very interesting. So thank you very much. And we haven't scheduled the next speaker yet, but you'll learn about it maybe in the next week. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.